Let's go over some basics of database design. Now in our design, when we want to code it, we'll use SQL. So we can start off by creating a table. We have the data item, so we have here player ID, name and surname. We have the data type, so we've got integer, string and string called varchar with how much the maximum length will be in brackets. Then we've got some constraints. So here we've got the constraint of primary key and auto increment, which means it will go up 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. by itself. Here we've got another table called points. Now this also has primary key, auto increment. We have score and week, which are both integers. Score has default null, so there's no score inside, nothing's put in. And week, we have a constraint checking to make sure it's between 1 and 52. At the bottom we've got player ID. Now that's the primary key from the previous table, so in this table it's going to be a foreign key. So we say it's a foreign key, player ID, and that references the player ID from the player table. So let's look at some simple select SQL statements. Here we've got select name from friends. Here we've got select name and surname from friends. So we can look at one column or more than one column from a table. Here we've got all of the column names from friends. We can use an asterisk to do that as well. So instead of writing all the columns, we can use select asterisk from the table name. Now if we want to see all the surnames, if we just use a select, we will have people with the same surname will be repeated. So we can use the word distinct, so the answer set we get from the select statement will not include duplicates. Now if we want to see all the surnames, we'll probably want to see them in order. So if we want to go A, B, C, etc., we can use order by. The default value is ascending. And if you want to go the other way, so say for example you want to see top score going downwards, you would use descending. So you can use order by, then the column name, and then DESC for descending. Here we've got select all from friends, and we want to say the surname equals Smith, so that will only choose the records where the surname equals Smith. The bottom one, example, we have surname. Instead of equal Smith, it's like. The S means it's going to begin with capital S, and then the percentage sign means it's followed by other text or not. So that's going to be like something that starts with S. So we can use the same, begins with a B, so we use like again, and the other example begins with a J. We could have, if we're looking for something like John for example, we could have percentage sign HN, so we have text up to and then HN, or ones that finish with N, we have the percentage sign and N. We could have scores that are greater than 50, we could have scores greater than 50 and then ordered. Here descending, so we have the highest score that's greater than 50. In order, we will list all the scores that are greater than 50 with the highest to the lowest that's greater than 50. Now we have SQL aggregate functions. So in select statements we can do some maths. So the aggregate functions are like maximum, minimum, average, sum and count. So we can use a normal select statement and add numbers and multiply numbers. So for example here we just add a 1 to whatever the score is, or add 10% to what the score is by multiplying 1 by 1. We can divide by 2 or modular 2. Here we've got the highest score. We use max and score in brackets, and we've got the lowest score using min with scoring brackets. The average score, the sum, the total score, the scores that added up together. That's the sum. We count how many scores we've got, and we can do maths as well, so the average score multiplied by 1.1 is here as well. Now if we was to do that, the column name would be a bit confusing, so we can give it an alias. So we just say as and then the alias name. So this would give the result set as normal, but the column that we've created, the new one of average score times 1.1, would now be called average bonus. Here's an example where we want to look at the top scores, but we want to limit them. So we select the score from the table, and then we order by the score descending, so the highest score is first, but we put a limit on it, so we're only looking at the top 3. We can use different terms with the where clause in a select statement. So let's have a look at these. We've got a normal where, select all from friends where week equals 1 and where surname equals Smith. So that's quite straightforward. Now this one we've used where surname equals Smith and name equals John. So it's like having 2 where clauses. We join them using and. Second example, we've got where surname equals Smith or surname equals Thomas. So that will select the fields, the rows that have either of those surnames. We can order them, so order by would come at the end of those statements. And here we've got surname in, so we've got in, Smith or Thomas. So we could use quite a few surnames in there, so you could choose surnames from a list. We can use not, as in surname not in Smith and Thomas. And we can also use an and as well, so and week equals 1, for example. We've got or, where score equals 53 or score equals 64. We could use mathematical symbols called operators, so where score is greater than 53 or score is greater than equal to 53. Between, we've got score between 60 and 70, ordered, and here is score between 60 and 70 in week 2, so we may and week 2, and that's also ordered. Now let's look at group by. So we've got select statements with an order, and the second one we're going to group by the name and the surname. Perhaps you might want to try these, code out the syntax of these select statements to see what they do. So here we've got the select with an average score. We've grouped by name and surname and order. Here we've got similar SQL code, but we're going to use group by name and surname with having average score greater than 50. So rather than use where, if we've got a group by, we use having after the group by. Here we've got similar, we'll use aggregates, minimum and maximum, and also group by. And here we've got group by to columns and order by. And here a group by is ordered with a limit. Here we've got group by using aliases. And a simple group by that's ordered. Group by with having total score greater than 100. So these are similar examples. So finally we have select, we've got the column names, and we're going to take them from the 2 tables we first saw of player and points. So to make sure we know that the player is the same player in the points as in the player table, we can link the primary key player ID to the foreign key player ID from the 2 tables. And here the table player we use an alias PL, and the table points we use the alias PO. That means in the where we know which is the primary key, which one is the foreign key. by putting the PL or the PO dot before the player ID. Okay, we've done a lot, we've covered a lot today, so I hope you enjoyed those videos, and if you haven't already, please subscribe.